Okay, hey, welcome back to another Black City Coffee vlog. In this video, I want to share with you a cool little project. So one of my cousins hit me up for a little white labeling project. So he's a mechanic, he has clients, and he wants to give away little coffee samples to them. And what he wants to do is, he had 3 flavors that he was trying to go for. So a citrus vanilla, a citrus caramel, and a banana caramel. And I was like, I don't know if I've ever tasted banana in a coffee yet. I'm sure there are some, but so that was kind of like off the list. And he said citrus vanilla and then citrus caramel. So I think vanilla can be kind of generic, and you can almost say that vanilla is like kind of like a catch-all kind of flavor sometimes, unless it's really, really strong vanilla, like say, you could say artificial vanilla versus like, real, vanilla bean. You could do that. But I don't think I've ever tasted it before in any of these green that I have here. But caramel, which is another catch-all flavor, I think we can nail, and we could really identify, and I could really say like, yeah, like you could taste caramel here, right? And then citrus, we can get that from a number of greens that we have here in stock. So we have the Rasuna, which is from Indonesia. We have our Mr. Pablo, which is from Colombia. It's fermented, super like wine characteristics. And then we have the classic Ethiopia Yergashef with, supposed to be lemons and blueberries and stuff like that. So what we're going to do is, I just roasted a bunch of orders. Thank you for your support. And that'll actually help me. We'll have leftover from these batches, which I usually drink. But I'll use those for samples, because I was going to just straight up just put it in my little, what do you call that, Ikawa thing? But that's going to work. So we're going to take those samples. We're going to have him come over, which is really fun. I've never cupped with another stranger with my own coffee in my own home. Not stranger, but like a stranger to our coffee. That's what I mean. So we're going to do some cupping. We're going to just do what I do in terms of like making blends. And we're going to try to hit and create a citrus caramel blend for him. And then if we get that going, what we'll do is we'll package them in these little like 2-ounce bags. He's going to have his own label, so he can put that on himself. And then, of course, when you're making any kind of food product, you have to label what it is. So we have that little working label here. We'll still have the roast date right there, but a very minimal sort of food label for that. And that's how I think white labeling kind of thing will go. And I don't know, I'm really excited. I'm happy and excited to share this with somebody else who I don't have any prior like coffee relationship with. And so it'll just be fun for me to kind of like sit back and see what he tastes, because it's not like it comes from specialty coffee world, and it's a good, it'll be a good insight for me to see what other people are actually tasting, right? It's cool when you guys leave me reviews, but you guys are like into coffee, right? So let's see what the layperson thinks about these coffees. Because I think what's also sort of like interesting is when people find out that sometimes I get the request from like friends and family mostly, saying like, hey, can you make French vanilla coffee? Because they're used to what they're buying in the grocery store, right? And so I never really looked it up until recently, which was they use artificial oils and flavorings to make those flavored coffees. So we have like hazelnut coffee. That's a common one, right? Like I used to drink that all the time. Don Francisco hazelnut coffee. But they use just basically artificial flavorings to flavor these type of flavored coffees. It's artificial, right? Versus, having them kind of like open their mind to specialty coffee, which is more akin to wine, where the origin of the green or the coffee kind of dictates, in a way, or in a big way, the flavors that you will get from these coffees, where you can get crazy flavors like blueberries and lemon and jam, chocolate, dark chocolate versus caramel versus vanilla, right? All depending on process and origin and roast style. So that's really cool. I can't wait to share that with somebody, where I don't want to be my job now is to prepare the samples, make sure we have a nice little environment for him to taste in a friendly environment for sure. So I really don't want to come off overwhelming or intimidating for sure. I want this to be a welcome environment for him, you know. And I, for one, just I want to have fun and I want to help him discover this sort of other side to coffee, right? So I'm really, really excited about it. I think we're gonna have a lot of fun, and I was doing the sort of like backwards process that I do when I price things out. And so this could be sort of like a preview into, I guess, a fuller episode of how I price, the coffee that you could buy on the site right now. So basically, what I did was I just thought about, I kind of think backwards. So I'm like the typical average cost of green. So I pay a pretty high price for green because I buy very small quantities in terms of like in comparison to say a cafe or a real roastery. So it's $8 for green cost. So what I did was I took my green batch size, which is 2.2 pounds. Okay. And then I minus the typical weight loss that I would be dealing with this type of roast, so 14%. That's like an average weight loss. And then I minus 14%. Yeah, that gave me 1.8 pounds. I then divided that into ounces. So how many ounces are in that 1.8 pounds, which is 28.8 pounds. And I divided it by 2-ounce bags. Bing. And that gave me 14.4 bags. So in one batch of me running that 2.2 batch size, max capacity batch size, I can get 14 of these little guys, right? So I'm thinking in terms of me sort of like, how do I price this? Plus my bag cost for these little bags. So these little bags, they cost like, 14 of them would cost like 70 cents only. So I just added that up. And my total cost for goods sold would be $18.30 to put this thing together. Plus my labor and all that stuff, right? That's kind of left over. So as I was pricing this, I was like, cool. So if I run one batch and I bag them in this coffee, I put these little labels on it, I seal them and all that stuff, and we work on this exclusive blend based on the average price of my green here. The price would probably be like $20 for something like that. So I was like, cool, that's a fair, I think, price. We have $1.70 that goes to labor and a massive cost of $18.30 goes to cost per goods sold. Okay. So that's kind of an idea of how you can like a preview or an inkling of how you can price your stuff. You've got to just take your cost per good sold, put labor last, and then sort of like price it from there. And how much do you want to charge for your price? Like I learned this a long time ago. Charge as much as you can get away with. And that sounds like an evil sort of statement, but it's like, how much can you charge that the market will pay for, right? So you can't charge this crazy amount where the market would be like, nah, man, I don't think it's worth it. There's a balance and there's some experimentation that's going to go on. Okay, you have to feel good about it. It has to make sense in the numbers, right? You have to cover your costs. And then you can factor in your labor. And like a lot of times I wouldn't even factor in my labor because I'm like, that's just going to make my numbers look really bad. But I would just be like, whatever's left over after my pricing, that seems reasonable or doesn't seem too much, in terms of like, this kind of gets really crazy in terms of like how deep you can go with pricing and pricing psychology. But how well known or powerful your brand is, so brand equity, they call that. How good you think your product even is. Because like I could come in here and just learned how to roast coffee yesterday and I could still price my coffee at $19 per bag. Now, is that moral? Is that the right price to put it at? Probably not, because most likely that product will not be as good as it is now with like 3 years experience of roasting and tasting and cupping and really being diligent and really believing in my coffee and also having validation from customers saying, hey, this is really good, or I can drink this. Right. So you can kind of go pretty deep with it. But now that it's kind of like fun for me, I can really let go of, in terms of profit, I can sort of not be so stringent about the idea of profit, but I definitely would want to cover my costs and my labor. And labor, you can kind of like, if you're just roasting by yourself and you're doing all the things, you can really, be nitty gritty about that stuff. But honestly, yeah, I wouldn't do the labor if I didn't love it. So that's kind of like, that's my heart there. That's the craftsman. That's the sweat equity, right? That they would say that is, that I love to provide. Now I don't want to be a slave in my own little hobby, but it's sort of a give and take. And you decide, you set those boundaries for yourself in terms of how much you want to give of yourself, right? Because I could honestly let this consume me, still have it be a hobby, still not make a profit, and that would not be smart, right? So it's all a balance, okay? So that's a little preview, I guess. We'll get into it a little bit more. But yeah, it's about $1.42 per bag, ready to go, ready to sell. And when I think about that and everything that I'm putting in, I'm saying that's a great deal. I'm putting a lot of value into this work, into this process. And for the most part, I'm not even going to charge him for this first run. I just want to see, and I'm sure he just wants to see too. But we're having some fun. And then if it becomes a regular thing, then yeah, I would definitely want to cover my costs. I would definitely want to make it feel fair, right? And if we have numbers, and if you do the numbers, you can always just price by intuition, be like, $20, whatever, $10, whatever. You can do that, but when you have numbers, you'll never doubt, I guess, what you're putting in, and just kind of like seeing on paper, that way you don't feel like you're being, for example, take advantage of, or just feeling, not good about the work you're producing, right? Because it's definitely a thing to offer or give something for free. There's a whole bunch of shit that comes with that. But I definitely just want to see too. So of course I'm going to make that clear, say, hey, let's do the first one for free. I just want to see too, let's have fun with it. This is about you discovering coffee. I really want to introduce you and give you a really good first experience with specialty coffee. That's on me, and this is going to be fun. I'm going to make content out of it. And then if it's a continued thing where it's now it's a job in a way, right? It's a gig, then yeah, we can talk about pricing. But it was cool to just do this for me. I don't intend to charge him, but for me, and to share it with you guys, what that looks like, And it's really simple. You guys probably already figured that out. But a lot of you have been asking me about pricing. Yeah, so there's that. Okay, so I have just roasted these coffees. What we're going to cup and put together and play with in terms of blends are the Rasuna, Thousand Hands, and Mr. Pablo. So I'm going to let that rest for a day, and then we're going to seal it away in a nice little bag, and then we're going to cup these on Friday, which is a little bit later, but I think it's fine because in terms of somebody who's new coming into tasting coffee, I think it's gonna benefit them in terms of tasting more, to let this coffee off gas even more, sit a little bit longer. Especially we have some naturals in there. We want to let them really off gas, really give off that any of those kind of just harsher notes in the coffee. And then we have one washed coffee. So we'll put them in bags. They'll off gas. And then we're going to cup them on Friday. So we will fast forward to that, and we'll see you then. Whoa, okay, welcome back. It is not Friday. It's actually way fast forward into the future on a Tuesday. Yeah, so I met with my cousin. We talked it over. I had him come in here and cup some samples, and I was so excited to do this for him because I didn't know what he was going to think. I was like, is he going to be able to taste the difference? Is it going to taste weird to him? Is he not going to like it? Is he going to go for something that is totally nostalgic? And I was so curious, right? So I was setting up the cupping for him. I didn't film anything, but I remember just being really, really excited to tell him what he could taste, and I almost let it slip, but I kept my cool eventually. And I had an idea of what I thought it could be. So I was like, okay, citrus, caramel, cool. Not difficult at all. I was thinking somewhere along the lines of the Ethiopia for the citrus, and then the Rasuna for the caramel, right? So I had all three of these set out for him. He cupped all of them. We went through the whole thing together. Like, it was so cool to put on my own little cupping for somebody who's never done it before. And I basically kind of followed, like, we did like a COVID protocol cupping, so we weren't sharing. And I followed what I had learned, like in at Clutch or at Hesse. It was fun to just put on my own little cupping, as small as it was, and then to create blends together. And what happened was I told him nothing about what he should taste or what he should get. I just said, taste it. Let me know what you think. When you're ready to make some blends, what you're going to do is just, you know, do 2 of these or 1 of these or whatever you think is going to fit your profile. You taste them. You let me know. I'll write it down. And then after a good, like, I don't know, 5 minutes or so into the cupping of him just tasting by himself and not me in there, like I kind of went away and I let him just be alone with the coffee basically and taste it, right? He just came back and he's like, for sure, I like 2 Ethiopia to 1 Rasuna. And that would be his blend. And I was like, yeah, that's basically what I thought you were gonna do. And then when I went to go look back at the coffees, he had actually finished the Ethiopia. And I was just surprised because, like, if you're not a regular, I guess if you're a regular coffee drinker, maybe you're used to something nostalgic, maybe you wouldn't be turned on by a light roast up front, you know? Like if you're used to something, maybe you won't like something super, super new or super, I guess, opposite of the spectrum when you first come into that. But, you know, that totally, like, blew me away. I was just totally assuming that. And so, yeah, that was cool. And so I said, okay, we got 2 to 1, Ethiopia Rasuna. We're going to do 14 little tiny bags for him. They're over there. And yeah, it was super fun. So the next time I'm at the roaster, which should be pretty soon, we'll put that order through and I'll film that and stuff. I think, yeah, when we put that together. And for this blend, we're going to keep it a post-roast blend. Rasuna and Ethiopia are quite different coffees, so I wouldn't want to pre-blend that. I think in order to get away with that, nah, I don't think you can get away with it. You have to charge kind of high for Ethiopia. And in order to maintain that sort of citrus thing, you have to finish it quite light. You can really easily take it into a medium territory and lose its sort of delicateness. And for me, if I'm roasting it on my first try with my roaster, because the first roast off of most any roasters is not going to be the most consistent, just because everything's still kind of warming up in a way. It's not consistent in terms of like retaining heat. Yeah, you could easily lose that. So I'll have to be mindful of when I make this blend. Whenever I roast Ethiopia, it has to be at least the second roast in. And if I'm roasting it in the first roast out of the gate, which I've learned, I lose a bit of that nuance. And it's really, really hard to roast it well if it's not going to be at least the second roast in to a roast day. Just observations for me and what I've experienced. Really fun to be back on the vlog and everything. But yeah, I'll go ahead and answering your questions. The vlog will continue, but thanks so much for hanging in there. And I'm excited. So we'll see you in the next one. Bye.